Hello, welcome to Quartzlight, your car brochure channel, and in today's episode we're going to be looking at this Austin Rover brochure for a new series. Hello and welcome back. Now if you're new to Quartzlight, we're a car brochure channel here on YouTube looking at car brochures from around the world for the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s and sometimes beyond that as well. So if you're interested in cars, car brochures, looking back at cars gone by, really channel's all about car memories, please consider subscribing. It is all completely free. Anyway, back to today's episode. Yes, we'll be starting a new series for this Austin Rover January, February, March 1983 brochure. Anyway, we'll throw it on the board and we'll do a bit of an introduction and tell you a bit more about that. Okay, so here is today's brochure entitled Austin Morris MG Rover Triumph, January, February, March 1983. Now, not too long ago, we did start a series for another Austin Rover brochure. This one for the end of 1984, and we can see when we put them together what a huge change the two brochures are, which is one of the reasons I've chosen this earlier brochure to do a new series. We can see the newer, updated, styled Metro here. At the top here it's saying Austin Rover Cars. At a time when they're kind of like, less names basically. This is still an Austin Rover Group brochure, as you can see at the top there, but Austin Morris MG Rover Triumph, so we can see there's going to be a lot more variety in this earlier brochure, although even, essentially, it's not too long between the two brochures actually. Zooming in then on the main image of the brochure we're looking at today, an early MG Turbo Metro, look at that, at speed. Very interesting, and certainly we'll have a look at that in more detail when we actually get to the Metros. Let's just have a look at the rear of the brochure before we start looking inside. And then the rear of today's brochure, showing Uniparts. Might be interesting just to zoom in on these images just for nostalgia, if nothing else. Okay, so this is quite a nice little image, isn't it? Filters, brake pads, etc., fan belts, Jubilee clips. Nice little image there, and then the accessories. All sorts of bits and pieces there, isn't there? Car polish, upholstery cleaner, shampoos, even an auto sponge with a picture of a Jag on there. So very interesting little images. And if we go down, the answer is yes. Now what's the question? Unipart, and then obviously at the bottom here, this is where you would normally get your dealer stamp. We've got Austin Rover Group at the bottom there, and then at the bottom here it even gives you the publication number for this particular brochure. Here we go, the publication number 3535-F, and the usual by appointment to Her Majesty the Queen. But anyway, enough of this looking at the outside of the brochure. It is time to go inside. Let's have a look at the first page. Anyway, back to the front of the brochure. Let's open that one up now. If I can manage it one-handed, there we go. So basically, these brochures from Austin Rover, they always had a bit of news about Austin Rover. Talking here about the 1983 Metro range, Super Shield, and then new Metro range for 83. We'll probably come back to this when we start looking at the Metro. But what I really want to look at is the contents for this introduction to this brochure. Now remember, in 1984, in the last brochure we looked at, the range was Metro, Mini. I don't know why they switched it around, but essentially a Mini and then a Metro, like here, although we were looking at later Metros, of course. But then we had Maestro and Montego joined the range, and also the Rover 200 series and the Rover SD1. So an interesting range there. A few new models, which kept Austin Rover a little bit more interested. Here though, the range, Mini and Metro again. However, if we look down, We've also got in this range the Maurice Ital and Austin Ambassadors. Ancient cars really by 1983, really outpaced by pretty much anything, really sold at this time purely as a bargain basement car. For example, like an Ambassador, it must have been one of the cheapest cars around for that sort of size of car, and that's really how they sold them, because ancient cars, it's a more of a continuation of the British Leyland, Austin Rover, keeping cars around far too long and then eventually replacing them with things like Maestro and Montego, really, when Maestro and Montego should have come in years ago. So that'll be interesting to look at those. We've also got the Triumph Acclaim at this time. Last brochure in this particular segment was the Rover 200, but this is what came before the Rover 200, the Triumph Acclaim. Essentially the last of the Triumphs, although very much a Honda really by this time. And here, of course, we've got the Rover ST1 range, which is always a popular one to look at, so certainly we'll look at those again, because I just love the ST1 and the design there on those. Anyway, let's move to the first car in the range, which is the Mini. Have a quick look at that. I don't think it changed hugely from 84 to 83, but we'll have a quick look at it anyway. And actually a few pages there on about the Metro, and rather a nice little early Vandenpla Metro at the bottom there. Before we get today's offering, the Mini. Now the Mini wasn't hugely different actually from the 1984 range really. Here it's showing the Mayfair, but with rather lovely wheels on it actually. So this particular Mayfair actually looks rather lovely, doesn't it? Typical Mayfair things, bit of a stripe and Mayfair at the back there. The luxury Mini as it was at the time, but wheels unusual, wheel arch extensions unusual for a Mayfair, I think you'll agree. Those would of course been optional extras. It's telling us this is actually an alloy wheel, so that's a very unusual alloy wheel. I don't know if I remember seeing that actually, but it actually suits it with those wheel arch extensions, I think. But let's have a quick look anyway, as we're here, how the Mini range was in 1983. So we turn the page and yeah, we are joined by midnight, but I think we can work around her. So yeah, first model up in the Mini range, and it's only obviously a very small range at this time. It grew and grew though, isn't it? But the Mini City E, your bargain basements Mini, it had just what you needed really for nipping around the city, hence the name I guess. Nice economical little car. I always think when I look at brochures at this period, it almost feels like Mini is on its last legs, it's dying. We've got Metro now, which was really the car that was supposed to replace the Mini, and you think the Mini's about on its last legs, like I say. Very small range, but then it kind of like went from strength to strength, and we got Mini Coopers and that, didn't we? So certainly a lot of life left in the Mini at this time, even though it's an ancient car. Let's just zoom in on the main image. Unfortunately, this one does fall on the crease there, so it's difficult to get a really good shot, but black bumpers by this stage, tiny little wheels as well for this generation. City badge at the bottom, black door mirrors. Almost look like the door mirrors have actually been coloured in actually. You find a lot of editing that goes on in these brochures rather than taking new pictures, and I kind of feel they must have updated the mirror and they've kind of like put this like almost too black mirror coloured in there by the looks of it. But like I say, a very simple car at this time. I've just thrown up the later 84 brochure up just to show you that the City E is still there, still around, but you'll certainly notice different wheels. And they had this sort of larger wheel with a kind of a low profile tyre, which actually I didn't really like as much, I must confess. I always prefer Minis with the small wheels. Maybe that's just me though. But yeah, a similar sort of idea still in 1984. There is the City E. I guess they tried to update it. I mean, there's certainly these wheel arches are sort of bigger on the later version. And back to 1983 again, yeah, tiny little wheels and barely noticeable there. And that sort of like a wheel arch, even if you can call it sort of any sort of extension at all, pretty much nothing there. And then, like I say, those tiny little wheels on there as well. Very basic seats inside the City E, as you would imagine, with these houndstooth cloth seat inserts, which I actually quite liked, and I think they did actually suit the Mini quite well. That sort of classic Mini dashboard with just one speedo right in the centre, so pretty much as basic as they possibly could make it. Little image of the engine, it actually says Metro engine, specially adapted for the E-type Minis. And then that rear light, now we've got a reversing light at this time as well. So just to sum up the Mini City E in 1983, 60.5 mpg at 56 miles per hour, which right at the top there, that's going to be the selling point, isn't it, to a lot of people. Houndstooth cloth seat inserts, heated rear window, reversing lamps and acoustic control pack. So that then takes us to the only other Mini in the range at this time, the Mayfair, the luxury one. And there it is, looking a bit more standard there with those more noticeable, more normal looking Mini wheels. I think the same sort of wheels as what you got on Mini HL, which came before it, I'm presuming. But yeah, a simple little tape stripe, Mayfair at the end, a bit more luxury. Like I say, barely any sort of wheel arch on the standard model without those extras on there. But if we look at the year later, we can see the most noticeable difference there is those different wheels with those low profile tyres, like a larger wheel, and also these much larger wheel arch extensions. A lot of people like the Minis with the larger wheels, and I'm not saying anything against that, but for me personally, I always preferred the smaller wheels on the Mini. And then back to that original picture of the Mini Mayfair with those accessories on there in 1983. Those familiar now looking wheel arch extensions, like I say, an optional extra back then. And like I say, those really interesting alloy wheels, which I don't remember, but really suit it actually. And then finally, once again, back to the Mini Mayfair in 83 without any of those accessories on there. And then the reason why you would have bought a Mayfair for that nicer interior, you can see the controls now in front of the driver looking a lot more conventional. A much nicer, I guess in some ways a little bit less character, but certainly a nicer seat material, and we've got head restraints now. And at the back there, the Mayfair badge, and of course those realised now with the reversing lights on there, and we've just got this little tiny glimpse at a different angle of the Mayfair. So just to sum it up, we get a push button LWMW radio now, so nice to have a radio in your Mini. Rochelle upholstery fabric, tinted glass, reclining seats, 60.5 miles per gallon at 56 miles per hour. Technical specification now, same as City E, but of course it's the same engine on the Mayfair, so it's a 998cc 4-cylinder engine, maximum bhp at 40 at 5,000 rpm. Economy figures, again it's the same for both models, so constant speed driving 56 miles per hour, you gain 60.5 miles per gallon, which is quite amazing. So the more the urban sort of driving, which is probably more what you're going to be doing in your Mini, 45.9 miles per gallon, still extremely good. This also tells us the optional extras. So for the City E, the only optional extra there is the auto gearbox. You're not allowed black paint, you're not allowed metallic paint, you're not allowed those alloy road wheels with arch extensions. You have to move up to your Mayfair to get all of those. Move to the centre pages, and rather nicely these Austin Rover brochures had a lovely colour chart in them. Actually, They really was very nicely produced actually. I think it was my favourite colour chart of all the manufacturers at this time, as in really nice sort of like samples on there, rather than just very poor roughly what the colours look like. These were way closer to actually what you got on your car. So we'll just zoom in on those. So you couldn't get all these colours for your Mini though, so as we go through each model during the series, I'll tell you what you could get for various models. I really like that Brooklands green actually, but you couldn't get that for your Mini. You had to go for Aram white or Cinnabar red. It does now go on to tell us you can get black, so it's like contradicting itself for the City E and saying you can actually get black now, so a little bit weird. You could get Primula yellow, I think was a really nice colour, particularly for the City E. I think they always look really good in Primula yellow, very cute colour. You could get Silver Leaf metallic if you went for the higher spec Mayfair, because it was a metallic paint. Get for your Mini Clove Brown, very much more of a 70s colour really, but still creeping in there into the 80s. You could also get the Opaline Green Metallic and the Zircon Blue Metallic, which I always thought were really nice colours and always reminds me of the early 80s and Austin Rover, those two colours. Lovely couple of colours. The other colour you could also get was this Eclipse Blue, very dark blue colour. And then that would take us to next week, the Austin Metro, and this very much a car of its time really, the MG Metro Turbo. That's an interesting one for sure. Which of course was the car featured on the main cover. So there we go, the 1983 Mini lineup, and a bit of an introduction to this brochure, ending on that interesting Mayfair with those very interesting alloy wheels, which I think really suit it with those extensions on there as well. What an interesting one. Anyway, the Mini. Do you have any stories about the Mini? Please do jot them in the comments. I always love reading your comments. They're always very knowledgeable, and particularly the memories I think are always very appealing to me, to read your memories of particular cars, whether they were good memories or bad memories. I do appreciate you sharing all of those. But thank you so much for watching today. The introduction to the 1983 Austin Rover brochure. We'll continue the series with the Metro, and then we'll get to those really very much out of date cars, the Ital and the Ambassador, which should have been gone long ago, but that, like I said, that's very much the story of British Leyland. But thank you so much for watching today. Please do join us again soon. We'll end by saying I've added a couple boxes there for other episodes, and I'll start doing a little bit of a box so we can do the full series in an easy to find area. But we'll say, if you've not done already, please do consider subscribing. It is all completely free. Like I say all the time, I know some people don't realise it's free, but it is completely free. Click that subscribe button, it helps me and it helps you. You can become a member for that is for a small fee. Maybe that's what people get subscribing. Subscribing is free. Membership is a very low price if you want to support the channel further. But thank you so much for all your support anyway. Whether you subscribe, like, or you're always watching these videos, really do appreciate it. Of course, like wouldn't be anything without all the loyal viewers. Thank you so much for watching today. Please do take care, and we'll see you very soon. Goodbye.